You're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology. For grounding that ass from all the New Age sass. I am your host, Jeff Henshaw. Cosmic Cousins is a new and full moon podcast ritual. It's released on every new and full moon, and it is here to honor the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. Hey Cosmic Cousins, eclipse season is upon us. Here we are at the Gemini Full Moon Lunar Eclipse, November 30th, 2020. It is getting dark outside right now and there's birds chirping outside my window, so I find this quite Gemini, the darkness of night, but we still have the lightness of birds here. Gemini is going to connect us to birds and butterflies. We're going to connect to the air element on this week's episode. We're going to connect to the breath and the body, of course, always. If you're new here, welcome to the show. My name is Jeff Henshaw. I am an astrologer, tarot reader, teacher, poet, many other things, but this podcast is primarily focused on astrology and tarot. And so if you would like, you could go ahead and get out some of the cards that I use to connect us to Gemini. This is something that we do each week. You might have heard in the introduction that this is a podcast ritual. So the cards that we can put out, and by the way, if you would like to look at the cards that I'm using for this Gemini full moon, I post them on social media at cosmic.cousins or on my tarot account, Brooklyn Tarot. You can look along, but the three cards that I have that I'm working with today for Gemini is the Page of Swords, which is mutable air, the Magician, which is Mercury, and the Lovers, which is Gemini's soul growth. So during this Gemini full moon, I highly recommend you take some time to meditate on the invitation that is present within these three cards. I'm using the Fifth Spirit Tarot. I'm absolutely in love with this new deck and the interpretations found in the Fifth Spirit Tarot. It is a queer and inclusive deck for a world beyond binaries, and it's by Gemini Moon, the Word Witch, which I'll put a link in the show notes to the Word Witch and Fifth Spirit Tarot. And it feels quite fitting to work with this deck on this Gemini lunar eclipse because Gemini is all about building bridges between duality. And so having a deck that is a world beyond binaries is quite in alignment with this sign that is all about polarity and binary. So on my altar, this is a part of my practice with astrology. It helps me to ground this very cosmic energy in a very tangible and real way, and it also cultivates a space for reflection and integration, which that's one of the phrases I have for us today is I integrate. So the things that I have on my altar, I have this little butterfly charm that my niece gifted to me just quite randomly in a very Gemini way, but Gemini rules over our siblings, our cousins, our nieces and nephews, and really any kind of child would connect us to Gemini as well. Leo and Gemini are the two signs that I work with children and inner child healing. But when we're talking about Gemini and also Mercury is a planet that's the closest to the sun, and it is often also connected with children who are these divine messengers of truth, right? So I've got this little butterfly charm here. The butterfly is a symbol that many use in tandem with Gemini. When we did the Zodiac emoji project on the Instagram for this show, the Cosmic Cousins followers there chose the butterfly emoji as the symbol that most connected us to Gemini. So butterfly is this very light creature that is connecting us to the air element, to our immediate surroundings. It is a divine messenger, of course, but also butterflies go through darkness into their cocoon and transform. So this is also connecting us to Gemini, is the ability to move through darkness into light. So yes, Gemini Full Moon Lunar Eclipse blessings to you. We're going to talk about these tarot cards. We're also going to go deep into the invitation of the Gemini North Node. We'll also discuss ways to work with this full moon so that you can bring and integrate these practices into your body and into your life. And then after all of that, we have a special interview conversation with the Gemini astrologer Colin Bedell, who's been on the show before. And in this conversation, we get intimate and, Colin is always going to make you laugh. So Colin is the author of Queer Cosmos and a little bit of astrology. And in our conversation, we cover many topics. Some of them include polarity management, the mythology of the Gemini twins, relational intelligence, Jupiter and Aquarius, queer love and relationships, working with a Capricorn Moon, Saturn and Aquarius and radical responsibility, and Leo rising in visibility. So if you're interested in this conversation or any of these topics, I recommend that you stick around for that part of the show. But first, let's take care of business. So I have some updates for you. So updates with me. Again, my name is Jeff Henshaw. I'm an astrologer and tarot reader, and I usually will have offerings that start in the new year, right in January. But we're all on the precipice of some radical shifts and changes. You might be feeling it buzzing. Both Saturn and Jupiter shift into Aquarius this upcoming December. And as an Aquarius Sun, Aquarius rising, I feel the rumbles already happening, but I am still unsure exactly what this will look like and feel like for me. So as of now, I am being called to just sit and listen to what wants to transpire over this time period. So I don't have new offerings available right now. My offerings are likely going to be shifting in the next month or so. And so what I'm feeling right now is they're likely going to involve more of a focus on the body and meditation, but there'll be more information to come in regards to that. But in the meantime, if you would like to work with me one-on-one, I would be really honored. I have openings for both astrology and tarot readings available for the end of January and February of 2021. If a reading doesn't call to you right now and you value the time and energy I put into this podcast and also my newsletter, please consider leaving an iTunes review, sign up to become a Patreon member, or you can purchase a workshop download. I have 3 different workshop downloads available on my website at cosmiccousins.com. All the links are in the show notes. In whatever way that you do choose to support me, this is going to continue to help me offer this podcast to the community free of charge. And I'm wishing for you all a healing Gemini full moon. And let's go ahead and get into it now. And so at this time, we'll transition into our Gemini full moon lunar eclipse episode. I've now moved down to the floor and I'm laying on my belly. Gemini inspires us to move our body. So I communicate, I integrate, I levitate. These are the 3 phrases I have for us here for this Gemini full moon. Each time we gather for the new and full moon, I will offer you 3 phrases. You could pull a tarot card for each of these phrases. You could write out and elaborate on these phrases of what they might mean to you at this moment in time. But intuitively, these are the 3 phrases and energies that I am feeling to inspire us to align with the energy of the Gemini full moon. Again, I communicate, I integrate, I levitate. So let's get into it. The lunar eclipse. The Gemini full moon lunar eclipse. This is a heightened, culminating moment. Always during eclipse season, we find ourselves coming to this illumination. And so this Gemini full moon offers illumination to the complexities of duality that are within ourself and in the world around us. And we know there's a lot of duality going on right now. So if you're able, gift yourself the space on this full moon to be in open air. Connect with the breath, take deep breaths, and also hold hands with your inner child. Pay attention to the inner child. Pay attention to synchronicities that are within your immediate surroundings. This is all Gemini. Gemini rules over the immediate surroundings. So it's movement is preferred here with Gemini energy. So if you can dance, move your body, and particularly dance with the intention to move contradictions through you. Gemini is also connected to angels, any kind of winged beings. So open yourself up to connection with angels, the fairy world. Be intentional with your words. This is a sign of communication. Note that your words do cast spells. So when we look at the tarot card associated with Mercury, this is the magician. And the magician is casting spells with loving awareness. Drop into the heart. This is so important when we're working with Gemini energy. It can be quite a mental sign, but Gemini is really, as an air sign, connected to relationship and beauty and culture. So open your heart up. Open your soul up to receiving messages at this time. If things feel loud around you, like if you have a lot of media going on around you, quiet the mind. There's a lot of conflicting information and even people around you. Yes, Gemini might inspire us to be quite social, but just know that having that time to be alone and reflection is really great, even if it's just 5 minutes walking in nature or in meditation. There's a lot of messages from spirit that are wanting to come through right now, and they might not come in words. They can be, like I was saying, like my niece gifted me that little butterfly charm, which a butterfly charm is, as simple as it may be, it also connects me to my grandmother, because my grandmother loved butterflies. And when I was driving my car the other day, I was thinking about my grandmother, and then right then on the radio, this song came on that was called Grandma's Hands. Gemini rules over the hands, but particularly for me, my relationship to my grandmother and her hands is that I spoke at her funeral, and the name of the speech that I gave was called Helen's Hands, which my grandmother's name's Helen, but I had a special connection to her and her hands because she was a gardener, she was a writer, her hands. She also smoked Virginia Slims, and I just loved the way that she was so elegant with her hands, but also would use her hands to get into the dirt. So anyway, this song came on the radio, which, by the way, Gemini is going to connect us to radio and TV and broadcasting, any forms of communication. So the messages might come through to you through a song, something as simple as that. So Grandma's Hands, this song comes on the radio, and the next thing I know, my niece, which again, Gemini rules over our nephews and nieces, handed me this butterfly charm. And so even though I didn't hear a direct message from my grandmother, it was a message that I felt her presence with me. So pay attention to these synchronicities. Pay attention to the wisdom of birds. If you are a Gemini Sun, Moon, Rising, you might be more attuned to this, or whatever planets you have in Gemini in your chart, you might be more attuned to this kind of energy, or you'll feel it heightened at this time because we do have the Gemini North Node, which we'll talk about in a moment. So yes, Gemini energy, it inspires us to acknowledge both dark and light in the world. So take a moment to do that. And you can bring your awareness to your hands and to your lungs. These are the sacred parts of the body that Gemini rules over. And so bringing your awareness to your hands, and acknowledging both dark and light in the world. If you feel heavy right now, which many of us may here on this full moon invites you to surround yourself with lightness. Be like the feather. If you have feathers, connect to them, put them on your altar. Again, connect with fairies, butterflies, other winged beings. This is so important here. Bring particular awareness to symmetry and duality. So we're taking deep, full inhales into the lungs. You're honoring that which no longer serves you. And then as you exhale, allow it to be a full, blustery exhale out of the mouth. and let go of any old stagnant ideas and energy. So actually moving the body, moving furniture, using the power of breath work to let go of stagnant energy. Shaking your hands can be really great at this time to aid you in this integration and release. Again, I communicate, I integrate, I levitate. Eclipse portals. We're in this eclipse portal all of Sagittarius season. Happy Sagittarius season to you, by the way. And all of you Sages out there, Sun, Moon, Rising, this Gemini full moon is also in opposition to your Sagittarian energy. So Sag, your new moon is coming up in 2 weeks. But for now, this is an invitation for Sagittarius to learn about its polar sign of Gemini. So yes, we're in eclipse season, which is an eclipse portal. Major upgrades are available to us during this time. Eclipse seasons have been times in my life where major changes have happened, both releases and upgrades. Not every eclipse is going to affect you so directly, but if you are a Gemini or Sagittarius or have a lot of this energy in your own chart, you might notice that you really feel some shifts happening. But we have to remember this is an air sign and a fire sign polarity. So air and fire might not actually manifest as much in the physical world as when there is an earth eclipse energy. We might actually feel it more tangibly. Air is much more mental. It's much more spiritual and psychic even. So be open to shifts in your perception. Be open to major upgrades around your understandings of the world, particularly into the role that you play in building bridges between duality in our world. So the way that you communicate, the way you write and engage with others is moving through a complete renovation. So breathe that into the body, breathe that into the hands, into the lungs. All forms of writing, media, broadcasting, and storytelling are building momentum at this time, and they're supercharged under this full moon. So be mindful of writing in your life. If you're writing words down or speaking words down, they are amplified at this moment in time. So again, be mindful of extreme polarities. Use your intellect and your social awareness to think critically, but also be mindful of overthinking. Gemini can, kind of exasperate that. So for us, Gemini soul growth, which we see in the Lover's card, this encourages us to drop out of the mind and into the heart when engaging with yourself and when engaging with others. So I'd like to share a quote with you, and this is from Gemini Sun Anne Frank. And the reason why I want to highlight Anne Frank is because, well, one, Anne Frank is known for the ability to write, which is very Gemini, and to reflect on life during a very dark time in history in a way that was quite uplifting, seeing the hope in the world. So darkness and light here. And the quote from Anne Frank here is, "An empty day, though clear and bright, is just as dark as any night." So Gemini energy, it can have us feeling scattered. It can have us feeling over inundated with too much contrasting information. So if this is the case for you, quiet and still the mind by coming back into the self. This will help to ensure that you are open and available to hearing the messages that are meant for you at this time. So slow down. There's no need to rush at this time with too much excitement. There's no need to overthink. If you need to communicate some sort of truth to others in relationship at this time, again, remember to drop into the heart. Right now, Mars is in Aries, so ground down into your sense of self by setting really clear boundaries for your own individual pursuits. If you need to, one of the words we have is I levitate. And so this is making me think of, often on the Lover's card in the tarot, there's an angel. What would it feel like for you to rise above? It's making me think of Queen of Gemini, Stevie Nicks, who says, "Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above?" What does it feel like for you to ponder levitating at this time. What would it feel like for you to levitate above your life, your current situation? What sort of perspective might this grant you? So this is something that you could bring into your conscious awareness when engaging with other people or making decisions. This is also walking with lightness, speaking with lightness. You might find that this would offer you some freedom or flexibility to move on from things that are no longer supporting you. Or it might even invite you into a whole new sense of spaciousness in your thought process. It is also important to note, though, we have Mercury and Venus in Scorpio. Mercury has just recently cleared its retrograde shadow and is about to move on to Sagittarius, but is still in Scorpio here on this Gemini full moon. So there is, even though Gemini is light, we've also have Mercury and Venus in this water sign. So remember to drink plenty of water as well. Some of you might be moving through some deeper emotion, deeper psychological healing. So if able, spend time by a river or a lake. If this is you, to unlock emotion, for deeper reflection, for deeper processing and journaling. So I just mentioned that our Queen of Gemini is Stevie Nicks. So if you're new to this podcast, to the Cosmic Cousins community, in 2018 and 2019, we were working on a project called the Zodiac Queens, and I always like to bring them back into our conscious awareness here on the full and new moons. And this way they can inspire us. And so the Cosmic Cousins listeners named Stevie Nicks Queen of Gemini for her ability to capture the essence of mutable air through her storytelling and lyricism. This is very Gemini. There is an ethereal wisdom about Stevie Nicks that speaks to the essence of Gemini's soul gift to us all. And she engaged in her performance in very fluid-like movement. She created a very mystical, cerebral-like reverb, and Stevie Nicks inspires us to communicate dark parts of our soul in an airy and uplifting manner. So you can allow her life and work to guide you on this Gemini eclipse toward deeper reflection and pondering. And in the newsletter that I sent out and on Instagram, I posted a depiction of Stevie Nicks as the angel on the lover's card. This is, again, Gemini soul growth, and this collage is a collaboration that I did with Tarot Wolf. So there's a link, again, to that in the newsletter. And if you want to sign up for the newsletter, basically everything that I'm sharing with you right now, I type out, and you can read along in the newsletter. So you can sign up for the newsletter at a link in the show notes. And so at this time we have Sun in Sagittarius, which Queen of Sagittarius is Tina Turner, which we'll get into why on the Sagittarius new moon solar eclipse episode that will come out in 2 weeks. And then we have full moon in Gemini, which Stevie Nicks is Queen of Gemini. So right now we have Sun in Tina Turner. And full moon lunar eclipse in Stevie Nicks. You can definitely feel the polarity of fire and air between the two of these, but there is something harmonizing when thinking of Tina Turner and Stevie Nicks and their ability to capture the essence of a story through their words and through their presence. So continue to reflect on Stevie Nicks and the tarot cards that we have for it, the Lovers, the Magician, the Page of Swords, as we continue to explore this Gemini full moon. So we talked about the invitations of the full moon. I would like to get a little bit deeper into the North Node access with you all. So this is, on a very practical level, the nodes of fate represent what's going on with the eclipse axis. And by the way, I forgot to mention, this Gemini full moon is at the 8th degree and 37 minute of Gemini. So you can look to your chart at the 8th degree or a few degrees before and after to see if anything is really being illuminated here on this full moon. The full moon is Monday, November 30th, really early in the morning, 1:29 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So this is, all weekend, especially Sunday night and into Monday. This is the full moon portal. You can work with this energy all month, though, because as we're in Sagittarius season, we're still here in this nodal axis and we're in eclipse season. So whenever you listen to this, it is the right time. You can trust in that. But know that Monday, November 30th, 2020 at 1:29 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4:29 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is the Gemini full moon. But yes, the Gemini North Node, the North Node of the moon, it offers us insight into the eclipse axis, and it stays in an astrological sign, the North Node, for about a year and a half. So we've had the Gemini North Node already for half of a year. We have a whole nother year of the Gemini North Node. So if this is the first time you're hearing about it, you still have time to really get to know it. And this is the first of 3 eclipses that will be in Gemini over the next year. So when working with the North Node, this is major soul growth is available to you when you're working with the North Node, because it provides an invitation towards evolution for yourself and also in the people around you. So for me in my own practice, I think of the North Node as the North Star. It's the direction that I'm heading. So, but it's not like in an aggressive way. We're not running towards the North Node. We're just open and receptive to receiving messages around the soul growth potential within this archetype. So you can think back to May of 2020. This is when the nodes of fate transitioned to the Gemini-Sagittarius polarity. Again, it's North Node in Gemini, North Node in Stevie Nicks, South Node in Sagittarius, South Node in Tina Turner. So since this time period, May 2020, how have you learned to think critically, hold both darkness and light, and to flow and adapt to your immediate surroundings? Think about that. So in the collective, the North Node shifted into Gemini right when Black Lives Matter began building momentum as the largest global civil rights movement to date. So a shift of focus away from the Cancer North Node, which was home and family, self-quarantining, and more towards our neighborhood and communication, Gemini North Node. So this time period, already in the first 6 months of this transit, we have another year, has encouraged us to acknowledge, learn, listen, and communicate about duality in our world. It's a time in the United States that is extremely polarized. We know Gemini is about polarization, but the invitation is to build bridges between polarity. And so in what ways in your life are you doing that? Both within yourself and also in your immediate surroundings. The Gemini North Node invites us toward this integration. So we get the chance to feel into it on this full moon, but we have this as a continual running theme for us. So Gemini also rules over marketing, advertisement, messages, and even social media. I know I've been receiving a lot more marketing and advertisement in my email, which is a little annoying for me. But, this is part of the Gemini energy. The Gemini North Node has brought up with it a heightened awareness to fake news, which has been a continual topic for contention. And it's been exasperated by our soon-to-be former Gemini President Donald Trump and his infamous tweets. So social media platforms, this is Gemini, and TikTok has become a very central theme during this Gemini North Node transit. I mean, TikTok has been around, but really in May, there felt like there was a shift. So just notice that in your own life. I'm noticing on things like TikTok and on Instagram video reels that a lot of people are dancing like twins. A lot of people are posting videos with words of affirmation, with sharp and quick informational videos. There is this heightened sense of getting a message out. And of course, the one that comes to mind the most is a video that went viral on TikTok, which was showcased the song by Stevie Nicks, Queen of Gemini, that was with Fleetwood Mac. The track was Dreams, which I played a little clip of that earlier. But in this video, 420 Dogface 208 is the username on TikTok. His name is Nathan. It's a very neighbor, boy next door feel. He's a bit older, which is also interesting. It's showing someone that is older acting youthful on a skateboard, which is also quite Gemini, skating to Stevie Nicks' iconic Fleetwood Mac track Dreams. And he's also swigging some ocean spray cran raspberry juice, which also is giving us this Gemini nostalgia. So video reels with words of affirmations, people dancing like twins, sharp, quick, informational videos, and of course, videos that are going viral. And whenever Stevie Nicks comes on the radio, it's a message from Gemini to us all who are tuned into the Cosmic Cousins community. And so the irony of this video of someone skateboarding, swigging cranberry juice, listening to Stevie Nicks is the backdrop of 2020, a global pandemic. And it shows this ability of Gemini to shape shift through darkness with lighthearted youthfulness. This is the Gemini North Node vibe. So watch that video if you haven't. I'll post a link to it in the newsletter and on my Instagram. But Stevie Nicks then responded. She created her own video reply. And in this video, she is sitting at her piano and she's lacing up her very Gemini-esque skates. Both skateboarding and roller skating are quite Gemini. Gemini rules over the neighborhood and anything that allows for short distance travel. And then by her skate, she also has the cran raspberry juice right by her side, which is, again, this Gemini nostalgia. So if you have North Node and Gemini in your birth chart, everything we're talking about is an invitation for you always, and this time period is called your nodal return. So this occurs roughly about once every 18 years for you, and it indicates a return to and a realignment with the core truth of your evolution in this lifetime. So if you have Gemini North Node in your chart, really listen up and take note of what's occurring in your life. So it's cool to look back to previous times that the North Node was in Gemini, to just see what that might conjure up for us. And what I find really interesting is that it's another dark period in time. The most notable world event the last time that the North Node transitioned into Gemini was during the attack on the World Trade Centers. Again, the Twin Towers, which is Gemini and twins. And then this time around, we noticed a heightened moment in Minneapolis, which is the Twin Cities, where George Floyd was wrongfully murdered. So we are just acknowledging that and observing that as practitioners of astrology here. So when we observe what's going on in the collective, it does offer us insight into the invitation in our own personal life. So this Gemini full moon lunar eclipse, it is the first of 3 Gemini eclipses that will occur over the next year. So this is visit number 1. So the North Node stays in Gemini until January of 2022. So the second Gemini eclipse will be in Gemini season of 2021. And then the third and final Gemini eclipse will be in Sagittarius season of 2021. So ask yourself very lightly, Gemini likes lightness, how are you evolving towards Gemini over this time period? Are you roller skating? Are you taking a new course? Are you building bridges between duality and your life? Are you connecting with siblings, inner child healing? What is going on in your life right now? Are you writing? How are you communicating differently? How are you upgrading these themes in your lives to build these bridges? You can look towards your own birth chart to lead the way. Whatever you have in Gemini is having that fateful realignment over this time period. On this Gemini lunar eclipse, the North Node is at the 19th degree of Gemini. So any planet or placement within orb, which is a few degrees of this nodal axis, is moving through any kind of shift is moving through a fateful realignment at this time. I know for me, I actually have Saturn in Sagittarius as the 19th degree. So that means the South Node is right on my Saturn. And I'll reflect more on that on the Sagittarius new moon solar eclipse episode in 2 weeks. But for now, again, we're focusing on this Gemini North Node, and this is what it encourages for us. I have some bullet points for us to just kind of close out this North Node part. Flexibility of thought and mind, swiftly adapting to your immediate surroundings, focus on children, inner child healing, and early childhood education, honoring of your shadow self, getting to know your neighbors, short distance travel, healing with siblings and cousins, shape-shifting darkness and light, and writing and communication. And I'm kind of laughing here a little bit because I just had to pause the recording to let the people in the other room know who are on FaceTime with my nephew and nieces talking really loudly. And so there is a lot of communication going on in the background. And here we are. It is the Gemini full moon after all. So I hope that what I've offered you here with the Gemini North Node, it has helped you. If you do have North Node in Gemini, this is a powerful time for you. If you need support with a reading, again, I have astrology readings available. If you have South Node in Gemini, this is your nodal opposition, and this will also hold powerful invitations for you at this time too. So yes, Gemini North Node, and there's a few other things that I'd like to say here on this Gemini full moon. I have an important conversation and correction that I would like to make. Reproductive justice is not just a woman's cause. On the Taurus full moon last month, in regards to Black Moon Lilith entering Taurus, I spoke about Amy Coney Barrett and her potential impact around abortion access. I've referred to reproductive rights as a, quote, women's issue. This statement is incorrect, so I wanted to correct that and continue to create dialogue around this. And what better time than the Gemini full moon to continue this conversation and build bridges between duality. And so again, reproductive justice is not just a woman's cause. It is important that this statement be upgraded and inclusive of non-binary folks and trans men who also need access to uterine reproductive care. So if you're interested in learning more about how childbearing affects people all across the gender spectrum, Alice Arden, Me Boo, and Honey Too on Instagram personally reached out to me and suggested we follow King Ya on Instagram, which is Queer Birth Worker, which I'll put a link in the show notes at Queer Birth Worker. Their content is extremely comprehensive, and they have helped Alice, a trans masculine person, to better understand how birth is truly non-binary. So thank you so much to Alice for taking the time to write and communicate in a heart-centered way. I still have many old learned unconscious biases ingrained in me. In order for me to have a clear channel when practicing astrology, it is my responsibility to continue to check for any stereotypes, prejudice, or ignorance that I may have. This is the work of the Gemini full moon. And so this work is often best reflected back to us by others in our community. And that reflection and mirroring is Gemini in nature. And so this is the work of the Gemini North Node over the next year, illuminated right here on the Gemini full moon. This is the kind of dialogue that we need. It's invaluable and it's vital to our collective growth and learning. So again, thank you, Alice, for reaching out and for sharing resources with us all. We can feel this reflected in Gemini's esoteric phrase. Each astrological sign has an esoteric phrase that was channeled by Alice Bailey. Alice Bailey was actually a Gemini Sun herself, and the phrase is, I see my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. I see my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. So, Gemini is also connected to our sisters and our brothers. It rules over siblings. And so I thought this was a wonderful time for us to support our Native American sisters and brothers. And when we're thinking of siblings, this extends to all people, especially our Native sisters, brothers, and Two-Spirit community. So on this Gemini full moon, in honor of Native American Heritage Day and in deep remembrance of the history of this land here in the United States, I've spent time familiarizing myself with NAYA, which is Native American Youth and Family Center, that's located in Portland, Oregon, where I live, and it advocates for our Native and Two-Spirit community. So if you're looking for a way to give back at this time, you can check them out. Again, NAYA, Native American and Youth Family Center. I'll put links in the show notes to that too. If you'd like to donate to them, even just a little bit can really help out. And as we're considering this topic of siblings with Gemini, this is the full moon to honor your siblings, if you have any, our soul sisters, soul brothers, soul twins, your nieces, your nephews. So reach out, honor, and acknowledge the cherished platonic relationships in your life. I have had the chance this week to reconnect with my brother and my sister-in-law, my nephew, and my two nieces. My Aquarius niece actually painted my fingernails black yesterday, and this reminds me of Gemini's connection to the hands, to duality and shadow work, which is kind of wild because my teenage self would have never believed that there would be a time in which I could have my nails painted around my family. So this is an actual physical representation on my hands of the evolution that we've gone through. In my own chart, I have Chiron and Gemini in the fourth house of home and family. And so I am on a continual healing journey, which is Chiron, with my brother, which is Gemini. And so me and my brother have a lot in common, but we see the world in very polarized ways. Again, Gemini, he comes from a very Southern Christian point of view, and I'm sure you've noticed that I do not. So my openness with my queerness, my openness with my spirituality, and I'm very opinionated. This has been a point of contention in my family and in my relationship with my brother. And so this is, it's coming to a head here on the Gemini full moon for me. And I also have Saturn and Sagittarius in direct opposition to my Chiron in Gemini. And so it's taken time, which is Saturn, for me and my brother to find ways to connect with one another besides through the Sagittarian pursuits of philosophy and religion. And when I reflect on this, my brother's wife is a Gemini moon and has really helped to build bridges between duality and me and my brother's relationship, keeping our connection light, allowing it to be adaptable and ever-flowing. And also the children, their kids, have also, of course, offered this Gemini childlike shape-shifting of new perspectives, keeping things light. We went on a walk yesterday, and the two older ones were on their scooters, which again, skateboards, scooters, roller skates, all of this is very Gemini. It's short-term travel, bikes, whereas Sagittarius, the polar sign, is long-term epic travel, getting on a plane, going to another country. So again, it's my hopes that this Gemini full moon also brings healing to whatever may be on your heart in regards to sibling energy in your life. And of course, this show's called Cosmic Cousins, so we're all cousins here on this show. I usually think of Cosmic Cousins as a bit more Aquarian, but it's also Gemini too. So happy Gemini full moon lunar eclipse to you. At this time, we're going to transition into a conversation with Colin Bedell of Queer Cosmos. So we'll transition into that now. Today with us on the show, we have a very special guest with us. We have the one and only Colin Bedell of Queer Cosmos. So thank you so much, Colin, for being with us here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me. I love your listeners. I've gotten so many readings with them, and they've been so thoughtful and engaged with me. I would love to meet each and every one of them, because when I know that Jeff sent them my way, I'm just like, oh, I'm going to love you.
Yes. It's really cool. I feel like there is a resonance between the people that we connect with. I think both as queer astrologers, that's really cool to see the way that we support each other and each other's work. So it's an honor truly to connect with you in this way. And for those of you who are not familiar with Colin, it would be nice for us to reconnect with your sun, moon, rising, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, yeah. So my sun, moon, rising. I'm a Gemini sun. I'm a Capricorn moon, and I'm a Leo rising. I'm a Gemini twin, which I really love. And that's kind of what I've been meditating over the last few weeks, is really just how Gemini leverages polarity, how Gemini has the communication skills to maximize upside, minimize downside. We do not have theoretically an objection to too much difference. And that's really been the basis of my life and the basis of my work.
And we see so much of that in your work. And I would love to actually connect to these three aspects of yourself, your sun, moon, and rising. And I will highlight the ways that you are expressing this energy from my perspective, so that those tuning in can deepen their connection to your work, and while also learning more about astrology. So yeah, I think we're already starting with a Gemini sun. This seems like a natural place to start. And so some of the obvious expressions for Gemini sun is all of the information that you put out into the world. It's very stimulating, mind expanding. I think of you interviewing a diversity of people on your Instagram TV live, which is something that I think you've just started doing maybe in like the last 6 months. I've really started to see there's a consistency there, which we're getting a little bit of the Capricorn Moon coming into. But yes, your ability to create dialogue with people. And so if you're not following Colin already, go ahead and check out their Instagram. I'll put a link in the show notes, because there's so much valuable information for the astrology community there. So maybe we'll start there. When was this inspired for you to start connecting with people one-on-one and interviewing other people, not only in the astrology world, but also just in the healing world in general, it seems, and spiritual world?
Well, great question. And thank you for noticing that, because I do try to kind of demonstrate the value of Gemini dialogue as opposed to the monologic kind of modalities that dominate all industries, including astrology and spirituality. So I think it really all started when I did my first Instagram TV with Ophira Adu, who is one half of the Astro Twins, right? So Gemini, Sagittarius, Polarity. She is one of my best friends, my ride or dies. I love her with all my heart. And she started saying, you should do more of these more often. I know you've always liked yapping with people, so why not? And then, and then the next person I had on was Mecca Woods, who's another one of my soul fam. And I was an astrologer. We love her, mylifecreated.com.
Also Sag?
Sag, yep, Sag,
okay.
Aquarius Moon, yep, Leo rising. And I just really loved talking to other people. And I would do usually like 10-minute kind of clips before COVID of the sun sign when the full moon was in their sign, right? So during the full moon in Taurus, I brought on a Taurus artist. During a full moon in Libra, I brought in a Libra, and I wanted to have them just speak for themselves, right? Because who can do it better than them? And then when COVID hit, it really became a kind of motivation to create more dialogue, not just within astrology, but other sources that can really help us navigate the pandemic. And then it took a more definitive shape after the murder of George Floyd, because I noticed that, and I understand why people felt moved to do this. I just knew it wasn't for me. But there was this movement towards, I'm going to be quiet and I'm just going to listen.
Yeah.
And the Gemini stellium in me was like, I don't know if that's what's best right now, actually. I don't think anybody should be muted. Of course, we want to amplify Black voices always. And I think that if a white creator as myself happens to have a space to amplify those voices, then I'm going to do that, right? Yeah. So it started with my amazing colleague, Jaleesa Cypress, another astrologer at Obsidian Moon Astrology. We talked about anti-racism in astrology. And then I brought on a different Black astrologer that whole week. And so I just said, all right, you know what? This might be the way that I can contribute as best as I can. And there will obviously be more ways, but this is the way that it's going to start. And then it just became a bunch of different conversations. Like just last week, I had my tax practitioner on to talk about Venus and Scorpio and taxes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one yet. I'm interested.
Yeah. And she was so helpful and like just helping us walk through what the IRS is, how we can advocate for ourselves, what's the taxpayer's bill of rights, the difference between an S corp and an LLC. And I was just like, you know what, this is my Gemini energy emotion. So there we go.
And it's not only the communication and connection with other people, but it's the ability to adapt, particularly to the way that our world is changing at this time. And it's adapting the dialogue to match what is happening right now. Gemini is a very present energy. It's the immediate surrounding. So yeah, reflecting that ability back to you too. And I can't help but notice the shift of the nodal axis moving into Gemini, which happened in May of 2020, which was right around when the Black Lives Matter movement started building momentum. And there was a huge shift that time, just even the way communication was coming through, people engaging on social media, all of that. And so I'm curious, as a Gemini, how have you been experiencing this nodal axis shift into Gemini? And also, we are here honoring the Gemini full moon lunar eclipse for this episode too. So just acknowledging that eclipse energy too. Yeah.
Well, I think it really gave me a serious level of urgency to talk to folks about polarity management, talk to folks about leveraging a dilemma, a paradox, and moving from either or to both end where appropriate. Because I think what we often neglect to apply in conversations and theories and applications with Gemini is that they were fraternal twins. So there was already a contrast. There was already a kind of dialogic polarity quality to them. And so what I've been trying to do is help folks understand how they can have conversations with people who they may disagree with and to really do everything that they can to minimize the polarity that we're faced with. I really feel called to address depolarization, and most of my work is centered on relational intelligence and education from couples therapists. And so what better moment and what better training than couples therapy, depolarization, and the North Node in Gemini to apply now and help us find our way back to each other. Because that's also the finale of the Gemini story, is that they lost each other and then Jupiter, Zeus, reunited them in the Gemini constellations. And I think that's what I'm trying to get accomplished before the North Node moves into Taurus at the end of 2021. And I think that if we can do the depolarization work and really model and demonstrate the way to not only talk with each other, but get over our objection to difference, and then also actively listen to each other's, greater purpose statements and core fears, I think that's how we find our way back to one another.
That's so beautiful. And I love that you're bringing in Jupiter here, because this is a component that I haven't necessarily worked with in my own practice when working with Gemini energy. But I do find it very curious that Jupiter's been such a big player this year, being in Capricorn, hanging out with Saturn and Pluto. And also, Jupiter is transitioning on into Aquarius here in December during the Sagittarius season. So this eclipse does feel like, it's bringing up some Jupiter themes. How do you see that shift of Jupiter entering Aquarius, and how does that relate to Gemini?
Great question. Well, it's our fellow air sign, right? So, Gemini's got nothing but love for Aquarian energy because you're the sign of conviction, and I think we're the sign of dialogue, right? So I think conviction grows when it is dialogued with others. And so I'm going to love to see how they interact with one another. And I also think Jupiter in Aquarius does ask us to understand how much faith we have in what Dr. Martin Luther King spoke on, in that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And how much faith do we have in the fact that the world has tended to self-correct after what we've seen now, right? And I think I'm wondering, are we in a self-correction phase? And if we are, can each and every one of us say, we are doing everything we can to ameliorate unnecessary human suffering, to accelerate that healing, to motivate that reunion, and to also empower that self-correction? Yeah.
That right there is something for us to sit with and reflect on here on this Gemini full moon. And so I might actually even type out what you said and have it in the show notes so people can really sit with that, because I think that that's really valuable.
Yeah. And do you have any personal reflections on that? Not to take you off your script and your Aquarian structure, but what do you think? Does that line up with the thoughts and reflections you've had so far?
Well, for me right now, because, I'm Aquarius Sun, Aquarius Rising, so I'm really getting to understand what this shift into Aquarius might feel like for me. It does feel a lot more individualistic than I am used to my Aquarian energy being expressed. I've always been about bringing groups of people together. And I'm noticing, having Aquarius here on the first house, that this is actually a time for me to get really clear on what my vibration is, what my vision is, and how that, when we are really in our own vibrational field, this is what creates the resonance with community and group. It doesn't happen the other way around. And so with all of, the talk going on online and the stimulation, that it's important to be very clear on who we are within ourselves as individuals so that we can radiate out. So I'm definitely, feeling this shift into Aquarius is really asking that question that you're proposing, and what ways can I continue to be more in alignment with my truth, to create the truth that I feel inside of myself and the world around us. So Aquarian energy, it can be very away from the group too. And so, it'll be interesting to see how we all express it, but this is exciting for you since you do have so much Gemini energy. You're going to get this nice, beautiful trine. And you have Jupiter in Gemini too.
I do. Oh God, I got a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, a Sun-Mercury conjunction in Gemini, 4 planets in the sign of between. Too much.
It's really beautiful to see, and especially since you have that connection to Jupiter that you're bringing in with the mythology of Gemini. If someone was interested in learning more of the stories of the signs, is there a resource that you would recommend for people?
Oh, great question. I just did the standard research on the interwebs. I have not found a particular source of mythology on the zodiac signs. And I would actually like to know if there's more sources on the great twins that are not so Eurocentric, right? Because I know when we talk about Castor and Pollux, that's very much like the Greek and Roman iteration of the mythological twins. But there's a mythological story of twins in a huge array of ancient mythologies, and I'd love to know more about them. So that's where I'm at.
That would be cool to bring together. And right now, what I'm thinking of in the tarot, the soul growth for Gemini is the Lovers. And so there's many different depictions of the Lovers. The card that I'm working with right now is from the Fifth Spirit Tarot, which is a new non-binary queer tarot deck that's by Charlie Claire Burgess. And in this card, I kind of want to pull up the video again so I could show you.
Yeah, let's see. You can show.
So here's the card right here. And so it shows, it's literally, the twin is like the cosmic other self, and it's like gazing at the other self, which is reminding me, I sent you an email with the esoteric phrase for Gemini. Yes. Which is, I see my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. What is your connection to Gemini as far as the twins of being within yourself and finding whether it's duality within the self or, as you're saying, polarity within self?
Oh, great question, and gorgeous cards. So big up to the creator. I think the way that I understand the Gemini energy internally is the fact that contradiction, opposition, and polarity what seem to be the fundamental processes of truth, and also the fundamental processes of relating, right? So when it comes to relationships, we are often always straddling the polarity between autonomy and connection. Is this a time for Aquarians to stand on their autonomy and their freedom and their independence? Or is this a time for the Aquarius to show up for community organizing, mobilizing, empowerment, power with, and inclusion, right? And on the level of the romantic, it's the same thing. Is this a time for me to get my work done and listen to my music and be away from you? Or should we have a date night? So we see those all the time. And there's so many relational dialectics and oppositions and contradictions and polarities. And I don't think that we talk about it enough. I think often we see these polarities as problems that need to be solved rather than paradoxes that need to be leveraged. And so the Gemini in me is always sort of trying to interrupt people's self-talk when they see that as a problem. And I say, that water is wet, and you can't avoid that truth, nor can you avoid this either, right? Right? So I just kind of start there. And then on the level of the interpersonal, I am a twin. And I love that. And I love just experiencing life as a lifelong student of interpersonal dynamics, I was literally born with another human being. I have never not been in partnership. No?
Yeah.
I love that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's really beautiful. And when we're looking at the lovers as the soul growth for Gemini, this is about Gemini dropping out of the head and into the heart. And this is a sign of great love and relationship. All the Geminis in my life, I really feel that. And so this has been a huge part of your work. I have the book here, Queer Cosmos.
Thank you. Yes, I see it. Well read.
Astrology of Queer Identities and Relationships. And so this is very reflective of the Lover's card and Gemini soul growth to first build a bridge between duality within the self, which we could say in this case is queerness, but also building a bridge between others through relationship. And what I love about this book, Colin, is that you dispel the notion that there is such thing as like a bad match. You really highlight and encourage the beautiful expression of all astrological compatibility. What inspired this for you, matching each sign? So if you haven't read this book, go check it out, Queer Cosmos. But yeah, Colin, you go through each astrological sign and show how Aries matches with each of the other 11 signs and so forth and so on.
Yeah. Well, because I think when it came down to it and I was trying to research, how can I contribute in this moment? It was being written in 2018 and early 2019. What I was noticing is that the vast majority of researchers and authors and voices in the field of personal growth and relational psychodynamics were saying was that loneliness was considered at the time the number one global health crisis. And so why loneliness is a health concern is because in the absence of connection, there is always significant cardiovascular and cognitive decline. So we are neurobiologically hardwired to connect with others. It's in our DNA. We can't avoid it, right? And so the reason why I tried to reframe the identity and connection pieces of the book is because first, what keeps us out of connection is the fear of disconnection, which is the definition of shame put forward by Dr. Brene Brown. And so the primary premise of my book is, could queer folks and our allies use astrology as a means for shame resilience to claim what is truly our birthright, which is worthiness. So that's the belief, just a belief, that we're fundamentally worthy of love, joy, belonging, and connection. And thereby, we don't have the significant cardiovascular and cognitive decline. And we see the truth to what Esther Perel says, which is that the quality of our life is determined by the quality of our relationships. So that's the theory. And to be really honest with you, Jeff, I was just an astrologer who was not necessarily thrilled with how other astrologers situate and contextualize relationships. And I found that the vast majority of the analysis was what everybody else was saying without a possibility of, wait a minute, is this actually true? And when I started talking to licensed marriage family therapists and couples counselors and doctors of relational psychodynamics, they provided different viewpoints on relationships that I wanted to bring in astrology, because I believe that astrology's compatibility is usually predicated on what's called the uncertainty reduction theory in relational literature. So what that means is that a relationship is considered compatible when uncertainty is reduced. And that's why, what are the most successful angles in astrology? Trines, sextiles, not a lot of uncertainty, not a lot of tension.
Right.
Whereas the couples therapists have constantly counseled folks who don't have a whole lot of uncertainty, but they don't have a lot of passion. So what does that mean? And so I just wanted to bring that forward in astrology. And if you've noticed, I didn't even really put any qualities of that kind of traditional classical notion, because I do not think it situates with the leading literature on relationships. And so I put forward the primary understanding of Esther Perel's ideas, which is that the two fundamental pillars of relationships are love and desire. Love wants to have, desire wants to want. How do we leverage that polarity in our zodiac matches? And I, sort of theorized which zodiac signs I thought could be better at practicing love and which zodiac signs could be better at practicing desire, and not seeing one or the other as more valid, but again, just simply a paradox and polarity that needed to be leveraged. And I was really happy with the way that turned out. And therein lies the end of my TED Talk.
Well, it's cool to hear how many different thought provokers that you are drawing from and connecting to. Yeah. And a lot of them, aren't astrologers. You're coming from all of these different fields of research and study. So what for you as an astrologer came first? Was it the interest in psychology and relationships, or did astrology come first? And how are you? I mean, Gemini's building the bridges between different thoughts and ideas. So you're doing it right now, but I'm just curious how astrology became a part of your life in tandem with all of these other thoughts and theories.
Well, I think astrology definitely found me first because my mother spoke about it in the house when I was really young. So it was always kind of a part of our family vernacular, which I really appreciate. In fact, I'm actually in the room where she took a picture when she was only like 13 or 14 years old. And it was in front of a velvet glow-in-the-dark Cancer picture.
Oh
So
gosh.
I know, I'm in the room where that picture is taken. And so...
Do you still have that poster?
My mother doesn't, but I have the picture.
That's amazing.
I know, it means so much to me because it's almost been like I had no choice. Astrology sees me. But in my early 20s, I started to, at the same time of advancing my research in astrology by going to NCGR lectures and learning from Maria Di Simone at Insightful Astrology and following the work of the Astro Twins and Michael Woods. That was also when I was learning about Brene Brown's notions of personal development, Marianne Williamson's perspectives on couples, and the universal spiritual themes of A Course in Miracles. So that was kind of baked in the cake of how my work started, and I can never separate them, as you know, Gemini Power 101. And I really believe that I was reading the other day some quotes from Bruce Lee, the Sagittarius sun, the polarity to my Gemini. And I love his line where he said, "My style is I have no style, I have no form." And I just love that. And I kind of want to have that same approach to astrology as well, because Bruce Lee was not a fan of the real specific, fixed, methodical qualities of the martial arts. He said, no, let me figure out other ways. Let me question, let me reinvent. And I think that's how I'll always be doing astrology. And I will be conjoined with my fellow Aquarian, my air sign friends on that, because you're another zodiac sign that's like, I don't want to do the tried and true. There's a time and a place for that. Don't get me wrong. But is it right now? Maybe not. And so that's how it all started.
Nice. You're making me think of a question I have listed here for Cosmic Slip and Slide.
Ooh.
So I don't want to forget about doing this before we move on to connecting to your other energy. You might remember, but when you were on the show in 2018, you beat the record for Cosmic Slip and Slide, which is you answer as many questions as you can in 60 seconds.
Yes.
And you currently are still the reigning champion for that.
I want to beat my next record, Jeff. I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to try.
Can you put your video back on? I really want to see your face again.
Yes, because now I need to get into this. I need to drink my coffee. I need the caffeine to put this on.
Okay.
Okay.
I think these questions might be a little bit harder than last time too. But
Okay.
I thought we might put you to the test again today to see if you can match or beat your old record. And do you remember what it was?
12. I don't know.
I think it was 11. And we talked about the Gemini glyph. Okay. So I'm going to is your Leo more competitive, your Capricorn Moon, or your Gemini Sun?
Leo.
Yeah. So I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock.
Yes.
I'm ready when you are.
Ready.
Okay. Let's do this. What is the best self-care for Gemini?
Meditation.
One word to describe your love for the Gemini Sagittarius polarity.
Relationship.
What is Gemini's superpower?
Curiosity.
Besides Mercury, what planet do you most deeply connect with?
Saturn.
Fill in the blank. The only time Gemini was first in line was when they were waiting for.
The new iPhone.
Which astrological sign is Gemini most likely to look to for advice?
Sagittarius.
One word to describe Gemini in the morning.
A cranky.
What iconic Gemini do you feel most inspired by?
Marilyn Monroe.
What art form do you most connect with Gemini?
Oil painting.
Biggest misconception about Gemini?
Flaky.
What color do you most associate with Gemini?
Turquoise.
What animal do you most associate
Penguin.
with Gemini? And I ran out of questions. We beat your old time. You killed it. In 50 seconds, you went through 12.
And also I just went just like last time, I just pulled the first things out of fucking thin air.
Well, sometimes the unconscious really speaks to us. So
True.
What is the best self-care for Gemini? You said meditation.
Bar none.
Yeah,
Bar fucking none.
Is this part of your practice in life?
Yeah, every day, 5 minutes.
Okay. Beautiful. What is Gemini's superpower? Do you remember what you said?
Curiosity.
Yeah. Okay. That's nice. The only time Gemini was first in line was when they were waiting in line for the iPhone.
Yeah. I don't know why, but it's true. Like usually Gemini people are like, did you get the new 12? And I was like, no. And they're like, but it works good for your cameras. I was like, okay, I'll get it.
That tracks.
Yeah, no, the Geminis are like always getting the new technology. I don't know.
We went so fast. I don't really remember your answers for all these, but I said, besides Mercury, which planet do you most deeply connect with? Saturn. Okay.
I love Saturn.
Yeah. What do you love about Saturn?
Is that I think that it speaks to inhabiting a personhood required to do what most folks want to do. I think that when we talk about goals and strategies and vision, that those conversations are primarily relegated to action and behavior. And Saturn is like, well, wait a minute. You want to do all this? Great. I want you to do this too. But guess what? You're going to need discipline, integrity, reliability, accountability, non-judgment, generous assumptions. You're going to need a level of emotional impulse control. Sure, I want you to win at the Olympics as well, but I want you to train for them first.
Yeah.
And that's why I love Saturn, because Saturn, I think, keeps reminding me, especially throughout my Saturn return, that personal, relational, professional success, it does feel like a spontaneous enlightenment experience.
Can you say that again?
Personal, relational, professional, financial success, like all this success in the enlightened sense, like just the true meaning of like, wow, I've done what I've wanted to do. It's here. I'm standing right at it. Like that's a spontaneous enlightenment experience. I felt it on my 30th birthday.
Wow.
And I think Saturn wants us to have the personality structure, the bones to handle that much energy so that we do not self-sabotage. Because I think the conversation that's missing in the personal development crowd is what happens when you get what you want and you blow it because you weren't ready. And that's Saturn. It's like, girl, I tried to tell you, you're going to have to be vulnerable. You're going to have accountability. You're going to have to do this, but you didn't want to listen. You wanted to get those $15,000 a month in sales. And now you got it. And how'd that work out for you so far?
Spontaneous enlightenment.
Oh,
I'm so struck by this term. Is this a term that you came up with? This like pairing of words?
I heard this from Miss Marianne Williamson once again. I heard her say it about because she was talking about how when she has crushes on people, that it's like Cupid's arrow is a spontaneous enlightenment moment. Right? Doom. And then isn't that the universe's way of saying like, hey, pay attention to this person, my fellow Cap Moon sister. I love her. That'll never change.
Well, it's interesting because here under your Capricorn Moon section, I have like little bullet point notes, and Marianne Williamson is one of the like bullet points. Because whenever I think of your Capricorn Moon, I also think of her Capricorn Moon. And it's this like, and as we're talking about Saturn as your other favorite planet, that we are segueing into your Capricorn Moon now. So moral, ethical, responsible, long-term commitment, all of this professional, role. You are a role model for us, Colin. Like there is all of this that we love and feel about your Capricorn Moon. So I do like to call to mind an image when we're working with astrology, and I call this personal myth making. And so for you, your sun sign is the character of the story, which is 2. There's Gemini twins. They're curious and they're talking. The moon, I like to think of as the backdrop of like the scene of where they are. And so here it's the 2 twins yapping up the mountain, the proverbial Capricorn mountain, getting to the top. And so I think of this word enlightenment with Capricorn energy a lot, which I love that you're bringing it in, because we get to the top of the mountain and we see the vastness of the landscape, and it is a place of enlightenment where we see the light. So I'm calling to mind this image of the mountain for us as we're connecting to your Capricorn Moon. And I'd love to read just a little excerpt from the section that you have on the moon in your book, Queer Cosmos, because I think that you really, you nailed these descriptions of the sun, moon, and rising here. But the moon, the cherished home of your chart. This is what Colin writes. Your moon sign shapes all that you are emotionally receptive to in the human experience. It is the temple of your needs, vulnerabilities, sensitivities, and intimacies. Think of the moon as the mother of your ballroom house. It's your moon energy that shapes how you experience the family you belong to, whether that's your family of origin or the queer one you've chosen. So beautiful.
Thank you, Jeff. Oh, my Gemini is like, girl, don't cry when you hear your words reflected back to you.
And we're talking about the moon too, which can be quite sensitive. So it's interesting to have this sign of the very Saturnian Capricorn and the sign of, home and family. So how do you relate to your Capricorn moon on like that deeply personal moon way?
Great question. Wow. Okay. I'm going to bring up my twin sister again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So she is obviously a Capricorn moon as well, because we were only separated by 2 minutes. And so I quarantined with her from March to September in her home in North Carolina with her husband and her beautiful daughter. And she goes out of her way to make her life work. She is extremely organized, very responsible, very scheduled, very dutiful in that. And when I tell you that her home radiates with such peace and tranquility and calm and the function of emotion regulation, which is just peace, it was just such a healing place for me, and that to me is Capricorn, because it's not an emotionally reactive sign. It is not a high energy explosive. It's just like, let's just wake up. I'll see you at 8:30. Let's have some coffee and orange juice. Have a great day at work. I'll see you at 5. And I love that, and that's how I connect to Capricorn, is that my moon feels at peace when I am with others who are emotionally regulated. And for anybody who's listening and hearing that term for the first time, that does not mean emotionally stoic, emotionally controlled, emotionally disassociative, emotionally devoid. These are people who feel their feelings, but do not immediately assume they have license to react from them. So that's the difference, right? And I feel tremendous peace with that. In fact, one of my best friend's mothers is a Capricorn moon. She's also British. So there's this like very sophisticated and respectful and calm energy first thing in the morning. And I just love it. I love it. That was a terrible accent. I could try it later because I've been watching The Crown. But no, so
nice.
It's just a beautiful, calm, peaceful, still, tranquil, quiet energy. I love it. I can feel peace there.
Spirit of the mountain, right there.
Yes, yeah. Just looking up and like, what a view. And I felt that every morning when I woke up and saw my sister in the kitchen. And there she was just making breakfast. And, because we know the days when we wake up and we're not met with that. We're met with, oh, did you do this? And what about this? And, oh, I'm late over here. And that high emotional, flammable situations. I don't function there. I just don't. So, yeah.
Well, it's interesting because right now we have so much energy in Capricorn in the sky, and there are some big players, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, all hanging out. So, the stability of Capricorn is transforming in front of our very eyes. What has this been like for you as a Capricorn moon, and also someone with Saturn and Capricorn too, to feel this shift this year in 2020?
Yeah, and a Saturn moon conjunction, no less, Jesus. So I think what I have seen is, when I'm thinking about the Jupiter and Capricorn retrospective, right? I know that Jupiter is not happy in Capricorn, but again, let's question that. Right? So what if Jupiter just wants us to have faith and understanding in whatever the central teaching of the zodiac sign by which it's transiting is in? So what is the central wisdom of Capricorn? Is that if we do not cultivate higher resilience, we will not express the stories of our astrology. And what a year like the one we've had to really take stock on our resilience credit score.
Yes.
Right? And so when I think about what the Capricorn energy of the last year has taught me, it has been that. It has been emotional impulse control, perseverance, and resilience.
Absolutely.
Right? And to navigate the fact that, yes, this is an unbelievably uncertain and grief-inducing and very painful moment. And I still have the right to move through these situations productively, with integrity, discipline, emotional regulation, and cooperation with others.
I also want to add to that too, the Capricorn theme of public appearance. And I feel like there's been a lot of people who have been really expanding Jupiter and in the ways that they're being perceived in the public in the most ethical of ways. And so when you were talking earlier about not feeling like this was the time to silence yourself and that your Gemini was like, no, I have a lot to say. I also feel Capricorn, any placements we've had in Capricorn have had the opportunity to really be seen in a new way, in a responsible way, in a way that is along the lines of the shared vision that we hold as a collective for the future that we want to co-collaborate and build together. And I even see it with like my 5-year-old niece. Like she's grown up this year, you know, like there's been a huge growing up year for all of us. And so I feel that with Jupiter and Capricorn too.
Oh, that's a beautiful way of looking at it, right? Like everybody, let's grow up now. And I think that was often kind of perhaps the COVID experience and everything in between has really allowed us to understand, look, you know what? We cannot go on thinking we're the only ones with problems. We cannot go on thinking we're the only ones that have trauma in our childhoods. We cannot go on thinking that our stories are precious and unique, because they're not. You want to talk real cap truth? That's it. It's like, honey, we get it. I know you got problems. They're in your hands now. Take care of it. Unless I'm asking, I don't really care about the details and the intricacies of the how and the why. And there are some folks in the spiritual community who think this lifetime's trauma isn't enough. They got to go in their past lives and collect that trauma. And all this Capricorn is like, sweetie, will you fucking please get a grip, do what you got to do, and keep it fucking moving. Because you can't afford to keep protecting your dysfunction and your sadness and your this and your that, because you're just sympathy seeking. You're not really doing personal growth. And until you know that distinction, then you're going to get left behind, and we don't want you to get left behind. So let's do everything you can to stand within the fullness of your character, the fullness of your strengths, honor your deficits, absolutely. But step into your strengths, please, because you have a chart that needs to be expressed. Big cap energy.
Be your own daddy.
Hello. Yeah, it just came out. When my Cap Moon takes the wheel, I can feel my blood pressure going up. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. My Venus and Cap is here for it.
I hate it.
Yeah. So we're coming close to, we could say, the closeout of your Saturn return.
Yeah.
You have an earlier degree Saturn, but you know, Saturn's still in Capricorn for another few weeks. And so almost congratulations to completing this Saturn return. What advice might you have for those with Saturn and Aquarius that are coming up on their Saturn return? And what did you learn from yours?
So for Saturn and Aquarius, I would really encourage them to understand the theoretical and the application of shared humanity, unity consciousness, you know, the collective beloved community that only Aquarius energy understands. And so what that looks like could be, you know, reading The Principles of Nonviolence by the MLK Center. It could be reading Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. There's a lot of different ways that we can understand. Octavia Butler has some, because of her science fiction, she has extraordinary ways of like looking at, you know, collective rebuilding. I would really love for them to know that those ideas, theories, and practices are not science fiction. They can be applied very quickly. And I would follow their lead on that 100%. Right. And if they want to take advice from an old crotchety Capricorn stellium like me, I would just say that they would want to really make the most of the next 2.5 years, make radical responsibility their bottom line. 100% of their life, take radical responsibility for it.
Is the radical Aquarius, or would you say that's true for everyone's Saturn return?
I think when I think of Saturn, I think of radical responsibility,
Gotcha.
Right? Because that's really what it is. It's like, are we really going to play mommy and daddy still at 28? No, we're not. Right? And whatever zodiac sign it's in textures that, right? So maybe you're healing from collective family trauma in a different community, in shared connection with other folks who make you know that you're not alone. And let's align with the strategies to operationalize wholeheartedness, worthiness, integrity, etc. But I think for Saturn, it just asks for radical responsibility. I don't think it's this depressive, hard, overly excruciating time, because with what Saturn wants, once again, is you want those dreams to come true. You want to do this, you want to do that. Let's see you actually align with the personality, the virtues, the character to do that which you want to do. You do that, I'll take good care of you. But if you don't, you're not getting past me.
Right.
So I would say that, and just walk with faith that Saturn will take care of you. Go ahead.
The elder in our chart is what I often think of as Saturn. And I think that you reflect this so much as a Capricorn moon, and with Saturn and Capricorn too, in the way that you do highlight our elders and people who have come before us. Like, you know, you're talking about Octavia Butler, you're talking about Marianne Williamson, and Saturn is a role model for us. And so looking to role models is something that we can do during our Saturn return too, that you don't have to do it alone, that there are people who have been very responsible that have come before us. And you know, that's so much a part of your work. You do have these people that you look up to, and that really is, you know, Capricorn energy to me and Saturnian energy is really about embodying your higher self and the potential that you hold here on this planet in the short time that we are gifted.
Your Virgo moon is like, what an attention to detail. It's true. I didn't even realize I do that, to be honest with you, right? Like I needed to work something to say it. Way to go. And I think having spoken to all those folks, Jeff, they've all kind of said something similarly in that truth. It's like, you want to change your life? Take 100% responsibility for it. They have never given anybody license to blame, emotionally offload, go right into evidence of searching for other people's guilt. They've also never given people any sort of license to just indulge all the things that give them dysfunction. So I really appreciate that. That's been a sort of universal across the board wisdom of do not protect your maladaptive behaviors. Do not coddle, put sprinkles and mustard on them. Align with strengths, please, and do so by taking 100% responsibility for your life. Yes, Saturn.
Always, but particularly during your Saturn return. But that Saturn is always somewhere in the sky. So this is an invitation for us at all times. And as we are shifting into Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, yes, I do find that we're going to be looking towards Leo a little bit to lead the way. So let's shift gears into your Leo rising now. And
love this polarity approach that you have, baby. Go ahead.
Well, it's hard not to talk polarities when you're hanging out with a Gemini, you know? So I have a quote from the Ascendant section here in your book too. This is what Colin writes about the Ascendant. You could liken the Ascendant to the cover of your queer astrological story. Given how important the idea and practice of visibility and representation is for marginalized folks, we look to our Ascendant to instruct us on how our divine visibility and representation expresses itself. Boom.
That's the Ascendant, baby. Oh, yeah.
I do. This is something that I'm thinking about with a lot of the Leos in my life is how they will be looking across the wheel to this major Aquarian transit that's coming up. December 21st, for those of you tuning in, 2020 is when Saturn and Jupiter align in the sky. And I believe at the 0 degree of Aquarius. Yes. So have you thought about this Leo rising and what that might mean for you?
To be very honest with you, I haven't, and I ought to, because I think it should be really helpful to remember about the polarity sign, the polarity approach. Yeah, I think because the rising sign is one that it's almost like the impact we have on others. It does have a lot to do with visibility. It's really interesting. I don't think about mine a ton.
Well, I think about it with you a lot because I do. I mean, the way, like when I have a conversation with you, it's Leo rising is the one who fully is present with the person they're with, shines a light to them. Leo allows us to be seen in all of our beauty and glory. And Leo often will do this because they have mastered what it means to be seen too. And, you know, as we're in Aquarius energy, when I think of this polarity, it is so much about the collective and the group coming together, but it's not coming together in a way that we are all like just one and like lose our sense of self. And Leo reminds us of the present moment to be, you know, as Aquarius energy, it's going to take us far expanse into humanity, like thinking about like long-term things, thinking about the group. But Leo is really there to remind us, no, it's the sun. We're here in the present moment, whether that's through humor, whether that's through creative expression, or just like building up people's self-esteem. Leo allows us to do that. So I know you say you don't think of your Leo rising a lot. Wait, what's that?
I was going to say, but you're doing very well right now, let me tell you.
Well, I know you say you don't think about your Leo rising a lot, but that fascinates me because so much, like for instance, when I was on your Instagram TV live, just even the way that you react to things, like I remember like I changed the background to like the astrological background, and the way that you react to it feels very Leo to me, where it's playful and it allows the other person to be seen and to have a good time.
Oh, yeah, I'm very dramatic. That's true.
But as far as like the soul growth of Leo, it is a very courageous sign. And your willingness to put yourself out there, particularly as we are shape-shifting in that Gemini way, the dialogue and the conversation of the backdrop right now, Leo is the one who boldly steps forward and is able to say, you know what, this might be some really confronting of what we're going to talk about, but like we're going into this with the heart, leading from the heart. And yeah, that's so much of you. is this role model, Capricorn Moon, leading with the heart.
Well, and also my sun, the ruler of Leo, is in my 10th house. So it's like, yeah, it's...
So this feels like moving to LA to me in some ways, which I can cut that out if that's not something you're sharing with everyone. But
no, I'm actually going to share it on the lunar eclipse in Gemini. I'm like,
here we are.
The moon and home and changes. I know.
Well, that's when this episode is released, so that's perfect.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah. So I think with heart-centered Leo and stepping into that visibility for queers and others, I think what I have really understood over the last 2 weeks, actually, and it was very much a Leo moment. I was officiating a wedding for friends of mine. And when I went to the bridal shower for the bride and met her family, a lot of them, when they found out that I was an astrologer, flat out said right to my face, because welcome to Long Island, gotta love their candor. They're like, oh, we don't believe in that. They're very like, nope, right? And I'm like, okay, but we talked and I was like, that's all right. You know what? It claims no monopoly on truth. I don't take that shit personally. Gemini, light on my feet, right?
Right.
Whatever. Believe whatever you want, hon. I don't really care. And then I was nervous, though, to then officiate this wedding for the family, because they know I'm not a rabbi, a priest, or this or that. I'm an astrologer, so I was kind of nervous about it. But it was a long drive out there, and I kept doing this meditation, the love of me, so it's the love in you. I was imagining just nothing but love for the place and love for the family and whatever. And when I gave the ceremony and I officiated everything, I had this line of people wanting to talk to me about astrology, and they were skeptics 7 days before.
Wow.
And I was like, isn't that interesting? I led with the heart. I showed up. I was like, look, this is who I am. These are who these people are. No place owns God. None of us really have a monopoly on that power, but we know we're here today for a specific reason. You can call it written in the stars, destiny, I don't know. And it felt really vulnerable, honestly. That had to have been one of the most vulnerable things I've ever done, to be really honest with you, right? Because sometimes astrologers can be in an echo chamber. We can't even imagine a world where people don't believe in this. And then here I am in front of 50 people who probably don't. And I'm asserting myself as an authority in this field, So
did you use astrology when you were officiating the wedding?
100%. Because I was joking and I was like, I told this story about how when I wrote Queer Cosmos, the Virgo Capricorn chapter, it opens up with Ain't No Mountain High Enough because it was a Capricorn Virgo pair, right?
The wedding was?
Yeah. And okay. She called me up, and as I was writing that chapter, the Capricorn bride brings her Virgo husband, and I was like, that's so weird. I was just writing that, like, oh, we were just listening to Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and we thought, and I was like, oh, put in the book, right? So then I'm sharing this with the family, and they're into it. They're like, oh, that's true. He is so responsible and organized, and she is a boss-ass bitch, So people start to see the connections, And I'll be really honest with you, that was really nerve-wracking. It was really nerve-wracking, but I love the work of Brené Brown when she talks about how daring leaders, when they're afraid, they don't put on armor. They just walk in with open hearts. They're real clear. They're like, this is who I am, and this is who you are. That's great. And because I walked in with that energy, I had one of the best times. And I actually sat at the bride's table, and every single one of the people who were formerly skeptics wanted to know about their astrology.
Because they want to know about themselves.
I guess so. Yeah. And they're like, oh, so I guess there's something to be said about this. But I think it was the way that I approached it. I didn't go on, because sometimes astrologers can look really self-righteous and indignant, and like, that's not my, And it was really powerful for me, actually. That really, really, really helped.
Yeah. So that practice of dropping into the heart, I think, is going to be so important for us. This story that you shared with us is so important for us as we're going to be navigating a lot of Aquarian energies. So Leo is here for us. And so Leo's going to be helping us lead the way. Leo is also going to be helping to build camaraderie, to bring people together around a collective thought or cause. And it's so beautiful, this example that you're sharing with us.
I hope it's applicable, because isn't that dropping in the heart really, Jeff? Is just like sharing the story in your heart for people who need to hear it. I mean, that was the original Latin definition of courage, right? It was cor, which meant love, heart, and courage was telling the story of your whole heart, which is why the lion's heart in Leo, Regulus, the star, shines the brightest.
That's right.
And so if we can find out ways to show up courageously and share the stories within our heart, then what happens? Enter Aquarius, where other people feel connected to you. Other people feel like they have the permission to do the same exact thing. And a different energy of shared understanding and shared humanity exists in the room because you led with the heart.
Yes. And it's now all connecting us to the archetypes that live within, which is also very Aquarian. And so you as a Leo connecting other people to astrology, having astrology or Aquarius energy on your descendant is
God.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
And help me that day. I'll tell you what. Go ahead.
So is this something that you're now offering? Are you officiate to weddings? Is this something you'd like to keep doing?
I loved it. I'm going to be really honest with you, Jeff. My Taurus midheaven was living. And actually, I tell everybody who will listen, the job that prepared me to become an astrologer, because I was studying fashion at Parsons School of Design, was the bridal stylist at J. Crew.
Oh, you did that?
Oh, yeah. Loved it every day. Every day. Loved every appointment. Loved knowing the family. Let's get to know each other. Let's look at your dresses. Let's put them on. What accessories you want. Put on the music. Where are the pictures? Oh, it was the best job in the world.
So you've heard it. If you're looking for someone to officiate your wedding, you can reach out to Colin.
Bridal appointments, 100%. We'll pick out samples. It'll be great.
I love that. That's good to know. I'll keep that in the back of my mind. Yeah.
I could see you in a really beautiful high neckline, long sleeve, cathedral veil. Oh, no. I don't know who's calling me. I'm annoyed, but go ahead. But I could see it. I could see the high neckline, long sleeves, gorgeous veil. Oh, yes. I live for that shit. I love it.
I love it so much.
The Leo Taurus drama.
I'm noticing on your finger, too, you have a ring.
Yes.
What is that one? Yeah.
This one?
Yes.
So this is the Claddagh ring. Have you ever seen it?
Oh, yeah, I have seen it. And
it's funny you mention this because because I'm very Irish. I'm like all Irish. Colin Ryan. Okay. And so in Ireland, you have the ring. It symbolizes hands for the friendship, love for the heart, and crown for loyalty. So it's the three pillars of a successful relationship according to Celtic culture. So friendship, loyalty, and love. And if the heart is facing outward, it means you're single. If the heart is facing inwards, it means you're taken.
Okay. So I'm feeling all three of your big three energy coming together. We have the Gemini hands.
Oh my God.
We have the heart and the crown of Leo, and then the ring, Saturnian rings of commitment. Boom, all right there.
Yes.
To bring it all together. We love you so much, Colin. Thank you for being on the show with us today. Again, it was an honor, and I'm so excited that you beat your record now for Cosmic Slip and Slide.
No, Jeff, thank you so much. You are absolutely, bar none, one of the best interviewers I've ever observed. You are so thoughtful and prepared. You bring the book, you read it out loud, you make everybody feel so safe, seen, and heard and understood. And I appreciate that so much about you. You are also an extraordinary luminary, I can't tell you how many times I've been in readings and people have spoken about you. And I just am filled with pride because I love your approach, your theory, your methodology, your style in astrology. You do such great work connected to really applicable considerations and evidence that people need to hear. It's not just abstract spiritual information. It's really tangible, historical, or contemporary social evidence. And I'm very proud of you.
Thank you so much, Colin. I'm receiving all of that and I'm reflecting it all back to you. I feel the same about you. And yeah, I'm just sending you big love here on this Gemini full moon eclipse. And I'm excited for what's coming for you in the future.
Oh, thank you. Same. And now we got to get you on my Instagram because we need to talk about Mars.
Yes. Have a little check-in.
That's it. A retrospective. And have a wonderful time with your family. Enjoy your off time. And to all your listeners who are watching, wishing you a wonderful holiday season. Happy Sagittarius experiences, eclipses. Let's do it.
Let's do it. I always love connecting with Colin. It is so nice to be here with you all, and it's an honor. So thank you. Again, my name is Jeff Henshaw. I'm an astrologer and tarot reader. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one, you can go to my website at cosmiccousins.com. If you would like to support the show, you can become a Patreon member. Patreon.com/cosmiccousins. You could rate and leave comments and love for the podcast, for the show. And you could also share this with your brothers and sisters here on this Gemini full moon. Again, the phrases we have for this full moon are: I communicate, I integrate. I levitate. I'm sending you all off with the Gemini love. Remember, drop into the heart. Take deep breaths into the lungs. Connect to the hands. Dance with your contradictions. Hold hands with your inner child. Use your intellect and social awareness to build bridges between duality. And I'll see you next time, Cosmic Cousins. Take sweet care. And remember, deep breaths.